Welcome to Lead Story on this Monday on CVM TV. My name is George Davis. Criminals are raking in hundreds of millions of dollars each year through cybercrimes, and it has emerged as one of the most grave threats to people doing business, not just in this country, but right across the world. But when you look at the numbers, recent article published, written by the Director of Communications of MOCA, Major Basil Jarrett, showing the annual takings from cybercrime activities. It boggles the mind that that particular crime is so lucrative. And so MOCA is partnering with the Mona School of Business and Management, MSBM, to put on a symposium, really, a one-day event to discuss cyber threats and how we would tackle cyber security through strategic partnerships. And I've invited him here on Lead Story to give me a run-up to what is expected to be delivered at that event on Wednesday, October 30 at MSBM, at the Executive Lecture Theatre, on the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies. Major, welcome to the program, sir.
Thanks for having me, George.
Good. Cyber criminals are so sophisticated, are so very well resourced in terms of the technological tools available to them. And of course, these are not idiots committing crime. These are highly intelligent people who make this a career. Yes? Fact of the matter is that you and people like you in the business of fighting crimes, including cyber crimes, have a daunting task on your hands staying ahead of these criminals.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's often described as a cat and mouse game. We being the cats, of course, and these criminals being the mice. It's every day they're one step ahead of us, and just when we believe that we've finally caught on to them, they shift entirely. What we've noticed over the years is that cyberspace is increasingly becoming a domain for these criminals. I can't think of any crime that's committed nowadays, especially financial crimes, that doesn't have a cyber component to it. And so with new technologies, more sophistication, AI on the horizon, it's literally what are they going to do next?
Yes.
And so we at MOCA, we've always taken a collaborative approach to how we do business. We collaborate with various law enforcement entities across the spectrum, both here and overseas. But in this business of cyber crimes, AI and looming technology on the horizon, we realize that there really needs to be a greater synergy between law enforcement, the business sector, who's most affected by it, and academia, which is churning out these technologies and churning out these people who are able to use the technology for nefarious purposes. So we believe that a public forum like this puts those three bodies in the room and gets us sharing knowledge, sharing our thoughts to see how we can combat this threat in a more effective manner.
And just before we go to the break, I use the word symposium to discuss what's happening on one day, because it is more than just a public forum, because given the range of speakers that you have and the subject matter that you're looking to tackle, there is a lot of depth promised by virtue of who is invited to speak at the event and the subject matter. But we'll take our first break here on Lead Story. And when we come back, we haven't forgotten you. There's a package that we've prepared to set the groundwork for the rest of the discussion that's to follow with Major Basil Jarrett. More on Lead Story after these.
Pay nothing down on a shiny, brand new Hyundai vehicle with free loan payments until March 2025. Yes, get a 2024 Hyundai vehicle and get free loan payments until March 2025. 100% financing, 2 years free service, 0 processing fees, and other sweet goodies. Drive into the new year with your new ride. Goodbye, old car. Hello, Hyundai. Hyundai. 4 free payments promotion. Limited stock available. Offer while stocks last. Conditions apply.
Jamaicans generally are hypervigilant of criminal attacks. The looming threat of a knife or gun driving fare is an ever so present reality for many. However, there are some new sophisticated weapons requiring more caution. They look like this. or computers used for business, communication, and education are now vulnerable to the evolving dynamics of cybercrime. The PR departments of financial companies have almost a fixed routine to remind customers not to answer emails requesting them to hand over information and warn of phishing, which is the practice of sending fraudulent messages that appear to come from a legitimate and reputable source, usually through an email or text message, or phishing, which is using a phone call to obtain information such as password or card information to defraud the customer. And often, many fall for these traps. The dangers of cybercrimes are not limited to individuals. With increased corporate digitization, companies and public institutions are at increased cyber vulnerabilities, which means that the cybersecurity budget might need an upgrade. This is particularly difficult as the cost of the expertise isn't a drop in the bucket. Just this year, the Bureau of Standards Jamaica saw an attack which cost the company $36.1 million in losses. An investigation into the breach found it stemmed from a phishing attack. The Jamaica Eye project also met a cyber compromise, which then triggered concerns about the wider national security implications of cyber attacks. In the increasingly globalized and technology-based economy, the government must digitize its data and process while balancing the security of sensitive state data and be able to mount effective cyber defenses. Governments across the world have seen the importance of this, with governments such as the US launching the Cyber Command as its own branch of the military, and even our Caribbean neighbors in the Dominican Republic investing in robust cyber force. So what can Jamaica do to buttress our developing cyber capabilities? We discuss on Lead Story.
Thank you very much, Tricia Gay Kelly. That piece prepared and produced by Jonathan Atkins. All right, so here's the thing, Major. Why does MSBM emerge, or why have they emerged as a natural partner in this kind of one-day symposium that you're having on this issue of cybersecurity and the strategic partners necessary to protect businesses against it? Well,
the first and most obvious reason is that the MBSM is nested right at the university. And universities are this is the honing ground for a lot of the new technologies that are emerging that we're seeing. But at the same time, the Mona School of Business also straddles a business sector who are the ones who are really feeling the pinch. Banks, for example, have come under increasingly attacks in the cyberspace. How are these entities, not just banks, other financial institutions, how are they grappling with the problem? What are some of the strategies that they're using to combat the growing incidence of cybercrime? So from our perspective, the School of Business at UWI, it straddles both fields and allows us to bring those two key players to the table.
There was a time not so long ago when, based on what my police contacts would tell me, those people involved in cybercrime, it was a handful of people that, you know, there are names I could call, but obviously we won't call them. But there are some guys who, once you spoke about cybercrimes, they say, let's go round up the usual suspects. Him, and it was a small community. Has that community remained small, or is it now big and it is so widespread that MOCA is having to expend more resources to keep tabs on those who would dabble?
Well, one of the things we've noticed, as I said earlier on in the interview, we are seeing where cyber is becoming an increasing part of the criminal toolbox. So you have crimes that have always been around even before cyber, but those crimes have been supercharged by the advent of cyber. These are crimes that they can happen outside of the cyber domain, but the cyber domain allows perpetrators to be more efficient and more effective. These are, in the business, we call these cyber-dependent crimes, where they're crimes that have always been around, but they now depend on cyber to be better activated. And then you have those straight cyber crimes, which is, I take up my computer, I go online and I hack into your computer and I hack into your bank account, and I get access to your funds and all of that. So we are seeing that criminals are going into both spaces, and with AI on the horizon, it's becoming more and more, it's becoming easier for persons. You may not necessarily need how to code and program, but AI, the beauty of AI, and it's a double-edged sword, the beauty of AI is that once you are able to master AI itself, you can get it to do almost anything for you. Computing tasks that would take hours, days, months, can be done in minutes with the computing power that's out there now.
Has Mocha found that businesses are scrimping on the investment to build up buffers to protect them and their clients from cyber criminals, or are they spending what is necessary to build these fortresses?
I think businesses are aware. They are aware. In fact, oftentimes they'll turn to us, not just to investigate what they suspect, but also to see how we can help them to make their staff, make their own personnel be a bit more, practice better cyber hygiene, is what we call it. So you will from time to time get requests to say, hey, we have a suspected cyber attack. We want to know if you can help us in not only tracking down the perpetrators, but also helping us to be more insulated and better protect ourselves later on. So businesses are getting wiser to what's happening, because it does affect your bottom line, not just in the amount of cash that you have to pay out in order to as restitution for some of the damages, but also reputationally. No one wants to know that where they're putting their money is not safe. And even though you might feel, yes, eventually I'll get my money back if I was a victim of a cyber attack, it takes a while. It's inconvenient. We have to investigate, make sure it was a legitimate attack, figure out how much money was really. It ties up your money, and so all of these things it doesn't reflect well on the company. So we are seeing companies becoming more cyber aware.
Here's what journalists know, and that many Jamaicans don't. A lot of the people involved in cyber crimes, especially in financial institutions, the entities affected by the cyber criminals don't often tell the public that they've been the victims of cyber criminals. It is only when it gets out that Mocha, of course, is called in, and then Mocha comes in, and Mocha is as a duty to the public. So Mocha says, well, we are doing this investigation or so forth. Because of that, people are in a position where they can go around entities and wreak the same kind of havoc. Is this not a deleterious thing and unhealthy, medium and long term for businesses?
It's a concern that we have. So let's say you operate George Davis Merchant Bank, and you were the victim of a cyber attack. Your management team might sit and decide, you know what, how much money was lost here? $300,000. Let's give the individual back the money and let's keep it quiet. But when you do that and you don't engage a Mocha or one of our partners, it doesn't allow us to see what happened, how the crime was perpetrated, what were the techniques and the technologies that were leveraged. In other words, it doesn't really allow us to learn more. And those short-term benefits that George Davis Merchant Bank might get by simply paying this off, it defeats the purpose, and it makes it more difficult in the long run, because we don't know what sort of strategies these people are employing. So that is something that we have to contend with, right? And we do have engagement sessions with the various entities out there, and we try to encourage them to be a little bit more transparent with us in order that we can get the knowledge and we can be better prepare ourselves for what's coming.
Hear you on that. Tackling cybersecurity through strategic partnerships, the theme for a conference coming up, symposium I'm calling it, one day, October 30, on the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies, a partnership between Mocha and the Mona School of Business and Management. More on cybersecurity and the imminent, well, not imminent threat, the ever-present threat, here on Lead Story after these.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45.
Pay nothing down on a shiny, brand new Hyundai vehicle with free loan payments until March 2025. Yes, get a 2024 Hyundai vehicle and get free loan payments until March 2025. 100% financing, 2 years free service, 0 processing fees, and other sweet goodies. Drive into the new year with your new ride. Goodbye, old car. Hello, Hyundai. Hyundai. For free payments promotion. Limited stock available. Offer while stocks last. Conditions apply.
These days, challenges are everywhere and things are constantly changing. But independent living remains the same. Rising above physical challenges, we can help you do it. For years, we have been Jamaica's trusted provider for solutions to improve patient care, safety, and general quality of life. No matter your age or your physical limitation, we are the caring store, waiting to serve you. It's time to experience independent living. Visit us today.
A mammogram can shape your motherhood. The Jamaica Cancer Society, helping women now. Visit the website at jcs.live.
Early detection saves lives.
So 2 days from now at the Executive Lecture Room on the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies, MOCA and the Mona School of Business and Management will partner holding a discussion, a very important discussion, one would, I'm suggesting, on cybersecurity and tackling same through strategic partnerships. And there are some eminent speakers in the area, on the subject matter, who will imminently be sharing their views on how best we can go about fostering and establishing these strategic partnerships, which can help us to keep in lockstep with criminals who are constantly involving ways and means of bilking Jamaican businesses and individuals of hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's where I want to go as we come back for this segment, Major Jarrett, because over time, it would appear as if the numbers are falling in terms of the amounts raked in by cyber criminals from their illegal activities. You'd have done, of course, work in the area. What are those numbers, the annual figures over the last 4 or 5 years, as recent as you have the numbers in terms of what cyber criminals have stolen from businesses and individuals over time?
Well, on the positive side,
yes,
what we seem to be noticing is that the numbers are decreasing. In 2018, I think we had lost about $1.2 billion. 2019, it went up to $1.3 billion. But then in 2020, it came down to approximately 800 million and then around 715 million in 2021. These were the numbers reported by the Bank of Jamaica that banks reported that they had lost. However, George, as I said earlier,
yes,
they may not always report.
Yes.
So take the figures with a grain of salt.
Yes.
This could suggest or imply that the banks themselves are becoming better at protecting their assets. For me, I can tell you, sending money now, there are like 6 or 7 different steps I have to go through to send. I'm like, as annoying and irritating as it is, you are seeing some of these practical changes being made. And I don't doubt that it's working. But globally, by global estimates, we've lost maybe $6 trillion. There's no criminal out there who's going to see these numbers and just walk away from it. It's going to be tempting for, as I said, in the cat and mouse game, for the mice to become even more creative.
And the fact of the partnership with MSBM, again, I come back to that to ask this question. How equipped are the men and women who serve MOCA to be able to put together the kind of investigations that can thwart these criminals, one, and then bring them to justice? Do you have the personnel? Is the training available locally to put people in line to be in lockstep with these criminals?
Well, I can tell you that cyber is a key priority area at MOCA. We've invested heavily in the space in recent years. Not just in terms of the technology, but also the men and women that we've brought on who have specific training in cyber technology. In fact, one of the key speakers next week, Mark Burgess, our cyber consultant, is one of the key faces behind that initiative. But MOCA is, we can only do so much. And in order to fill in those gaps that we may have, that's when we rely on our external partners. So it's a holistic approach. We do a lot of information sharing. We share resources. We share training, knowledge, resources, that sort of thing, to help make a more cohesive effort across the board, rather than trying to say that MOCA is going to be the be all and end all as it relates to cybercrime. It really is a collaborative effort that we take. We realize that for various reasons we may not have all the resources to do the job, and that's where we will lean heavily on our local and foreign partners.
Where government services are concerned, I mean, there have been several instances in the past where sophisticated overseas groups of hackers have taken control of government websites in some countries, and the ransomware kicks in, pay us and we release these files to you, or what are these servers to you. Where Jamaica is concerned, the overall picture, are we, based on the resilience of our cybersecurity architecture, are we treading water in the fight to protect them, or are we in a strong position?
I want to say we're getting stronger, and the reason I say that is because on the technology side, yes, we are always playing catch up. But what we've found too is that some of the biggest vulnerabilities aren't in the hardware and the software. It's in the people, your staff, the persons who use 123 password for every email address.
Or use password for
password 123. Exactly. So what we've seen is that a lot of entities are now practicing better cyber security hygiene. Multi-factor authentication is becoming more and more popular. Companies are investing more in training and cyber awareness and cyber security training for their persons. So we are seeing a shift in how the approach we take in our relationships with computers and computer networks. So I want to say that we are moving in the right direction. On the technology front, we know the impact that AI is having, but we also recognize too that AI can also be an important tool for law enforcement. So it's interesting to see where this is going to end up. One thing's for sure is that it's not going away.
Yes.
I think as we go forward, computers and computer technology and our reliance on computer networks is only going to increase. Coming out of COVID, where, maybe you're a little bit reluctant to join the digital transformation or the digital superhighway. Now you have no choice.
Yes.
And so with more and more people coming online every day, there are more and more victims, potential victims. And so as these people come online, what we need to be doing is educating and making them awareness of, hey, this is a dangerous space and this is how you got to behave in that space. So I think, yes, I want to say that we are getting stronger, at least from that perspective.
Last thing in the final few moments we have in the show, Major Jarrett, years ago there was the very unfortunate situation where several young women were victims of criminals who exposed personal images of them online. And the images and the videos came out a flood and left people wondering, well, is the legislative environment so weak as to not have a punishment in store for people who perpetrate these kinds of events? Is that legislative framework strengthened now to make a criminal out of anyone who does that kind of thing?
One of the things that we at MOCA are particularly interested in is the legislative framework that's going to give us a space to do what we would love to do.
Yes.
In relation to that specific case that you mentioned, that is a gap in our laws. There are also gaps related to defamation in cyberspace. There are gaps related to how we treat computers and how we classify them. So there's a whole host of changes that need to be made legislatively to bring our laws up to where they need to be for 2024. These are things that we're championing behind the scenes. Obviously, the policymakers would have to drive this, but we have a concern that we may see something and they're like, well, what are we looking at here? Can we really prosecute this in the way we would like to? So there are some legislative changes that need to be made in order to give us greater latitude and room to thoroughly persecute some of those perpetrators and, give justice to crimes like that.
hear you on that. Thank you very much for your time. I will say this in my captive time on the show. Cybersecurity will always be a very, very important issue. Firms are spending more expending more resources to protect themselves and to protect their clients from cyber criminals who are eminently qualified to breach the firewalls and the fortresses that these companies will set up to protect themselves. It is worth paying attention to that very important one-day event, Mona School of Business and Management partnering with MOCA. It will be held at the Executive Lecture Room at the Mona campus of the UWI, where not just academics, but practitioners in the field of cybersecurity and people versed in how to deal with cyber threats will be sharing ideas on how best the legislative framework that Major Jarrett has spoken about can be further strengthened, the things that need to be done where policy making is concerned, and how it is that we train up more people to resource more of those entities who are on the forefront of protecting individuals and businesses so that we can at least stay in touch with the criminals. Remember, it's like a football game and there's a corner kick. The offensive team have rehearsed their routines, knowing where the corner should go, where the striker should run, where the center half should run. The defending team is always reacting to the moves of the offensive players. That's the kind of position that those fighting cybercrime and cybercriminals find themselves in. They are reacting and they want to equip themselves to react in a precise manner and to be able to react decisively. So, that very important event, Wednesday, October 30, 5 p.m., is intended to share ideas on how to react with more decisiveness and with more precision. That's it for Lead Story on CVM TV on this Monday. The news at 7 comes up next.
Our days get a little complex sometimes. Often so many things make sense, yet so many do not. We are being intentional about giving prominence to the big stories in order to clarify and enlighten. Lead Story explains who, what, when, where, why, and how. Lead Story with George Davis, weekdays at 6:30 p.m. on CVM TV.
Had to get some fans.
Join the fans of Family Feud.
Brought to you by We Are the Caring Store, waiting to serve you. It's time to experience independent